This is 18.4, which is energy from hydrogen. You see on the screen there, rockets that power the space shuttle and power all rockets are powered by hydrogen. So that's one that we've used for years, but not on a mass scale for either vehicles or for energy production, electricity production. So if we look at hydrogen as a fuel source, hydrogen is an element on the periodic table. That's the H. Of course, it's commonly found in water and gases. It is rare in its elemental form, which is H2, because usually it bonds really well with oxygen. So it gets pulled into compounds really easily, so we don't find it by itself. In its elemental form, H2 is really combustible. The effects that you see from the space shuttle taking off, that's the hydrogen burning. So we can create hydrogen fuel by breaking down water, splitting the H2O into H2 and O, or we can break methane apart, which is awesome because that's one of our global warming chemicals. So you see there is a new technology that can convert green algae. It uses green algae to produce the H2. It pulls the H2 out of the water. It does the splitting for us and releases the H2. You see these tubes here are collecting the hydrogen gas, and the oxygen is being used in the metabolic processes that the algae are using to make energy. So what are the benefits and costs? There are places in Europe where they use hydrogen as a fuel source in vehicles, and there are a few places where there are hydrogen electricity plants. Benefits are there is an inexhaustible supply, so it's renewable because we have just infinite amounts of it. There are very few greenhouse gases made in the production process or in the generation process. So it's kind of different from the other renewable sources that we've talked about. Water and heat might be the only waste products. That's awesome. We don't have to worry about storing waste anywhere because it's clean water. We can use it. We can store it and transport it. We can make it inert so that it doesn't explode on impact or something along those lines. And then the cost, of course, it's expensive to split water, and breaking down methane is going to release carbon dioxide, so that's not great. And we're going to have to use energy from an outside source. The really cool versions of this use a solar panel to jumpstart the process, and then they use the energy released by the hydrogen to the energy from breaking the bonds to continue the process, and it's pretty energy efficient. But again, creating that solar panel is going to have a footprint. And then if you're going to use it as a vehicle fuel, it has to be compressed so that it doesn't explode in the event of like a car accident or something like that. So one thing that I mentioned earlier, hydrogen fuel cells are how we would create electricity using hydrogen fuel. And this is a diagram of a hydrogen fuel cell. You see the hydrogen fuel is coming in. It's moving across the electrodes, which the electrodes are, think the positive, negative end of a battery. That's kind of the best way that I can explain it. If you have ever looked under a car battery, those are kind of good examples of electrodes. So the other side is going to have oxygen. So the hydrogen is going to be split in the negative electrode from H2 to H. Then the positive electrode is going to pull the H plus across, and it's going to bond with water. So we're going to have water coming out. If we pair that with a hydrolysis machine, we can split the molecules back into hydrogen and oxygen and pump them right back in. So again, the only byproducts are going to be water vapor and heat. And if we pair it, we're down to heat. So maybe we can do cogeneration and power vehicles and power plants and produce electricity. It also provides small-scale electricity generation. I've talked about some of the applications of this where you pair a fuel cell with water, you pair a solar panel with water, maybe salt water. You can purify salt water into clean water, condense it into water vapor, and you're creating energy, you're creating clean water, and you're off the grid, so you don't have wires running to and from a power plant. So that's how a fuel cell could allow hydrogen to basically create all of our energy. Now, really super expensive currently, so it's not something that's widespread, but it's definitely an emerging technology.